Today is May 27, 2009. This is a public hearing for the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. The public hearing is now open, and our first item of the agenda, as was advertised, is this board needs to go into a executive session. So I'm going to make a motion that this board go into an executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation, public discussion of which may have a detrimental effect to the board's position. If the board votes to go into executive session, this public hearing will reconvene immediately after that executive session, which I do not anticipate to be very long at all. So I need a second for the motion.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
And Stephanie, I need a roll call, please.
Approve.
Approve.
Approve?
Approve. Approve.
Okay, the board has voted to go into an executive session. This board is going to leave this room and go into another room for approximately 15 minutes, and we should be right back after that, and we'll reconvene the public hearing at that point. Thank you for your patience. on that. That matter is in litigation, so the board will take no action. That matter will not be heard at a public hearing tonight, and we're going to move on to the next petition, which is ZB 2009-19, a special permit for signs, Back Bay Sign LLC, 645 Roger Street. Will a representative of Back Bay please address the board?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Jason Perillo with Back Bay Sign, also representing the landlord and Jiffy Lube. I've submitted some revised plans, which are more in keeping with the recommendations by the Division of Planning and Development. We reduced the size of the pylon sign to 30 square feet so that it meets zoning. That's an internally illuminated sign, but it's not a it's an internally illuminated sign where only the letters illuminate instead of the entire sign.
Okay.
So it cuts back on the intensity of light. For the wall signs, we have made these externally illuminated, both for the front fascia sign and also the sign for the side elevation. So these are going to be externally illuminated with gooseneck lamps.
Okay. So I recall from the last public hearing that we did have some of those concerns that it was not in conformity with the sign regs, and
Right.
otherwise you need a variance. So
Right.
it looks to me like everything's perfectly in order here, and I have no problem with this.
Okay.
But open up to the other board members. Bill, any thoughts, comments?
Are we entertaining the one side or both sides?
I'm sorry, I should clarify that. We're going to do it one at a time.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll just repeat ourselves probably for the next one.
Yep.
So this is the first one.
Okay, I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
And Jack?
No, I think he complied. We haven't received any other communication from any of the other departments in the city, so I would now be in favor. Thank you.
Okay.
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
And Rick?
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, I should have told you this at the beginning. Mr. Belanger was not here for the original continuances. As you can see, that leaves 4 voting members.
Okay.
In that case, you need to have a unanimous vote
Okay.
on that, so you always have the option to withdraw and come back
Okay.
at another hearing. It will offer you a continuance, or you can go ahead with the vote.
Okay, we'll go ahead.
So you go ahead with the vote?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's open up for the public. Anybody here in favor of this petition? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here in opposition? In opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed, and I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 645 Roger Street for eternally illuminated sign. Second the motion.
Okay, roll call, Stephanie, please.
Approve.
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 Okay, so you've been unanimously approved. For that, you'll have to come up and sign something, but you can do it both together. And we'll take the next petition at this point, which is ZB 2009-20. That's a special permit for signs, Back Bay Sign LLC, 1717 Middlesex Street, Unit 9, to allow the internal illumination and refacing of pylon, as well as the addition of internally illuminated front fascia sign for Jiffy Lube in accordance with 6.3.4 of the sign regs of the zoning ordinance. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. I'm Jason Perillo with Back Bay Sign, representing Jiffy Lube and also the landlord. We have also revised our original submission for this property. We are now applying for a 30-square-foot internally illuminated pylon sign, where the letters are routed out of aluminum so that only the letters and the logo are illuminated. And we have also revised the submission for the wall sign, and now it is an externally illuminated sign, much like the property at Roger Street.
Okay. Bill, any comments?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Jack?
No questions.
Corey?
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
Rick?
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll open up to the public. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition to this petition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. And we'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve attorney illuminated sign at 1717 Middlesex Street, Unit 9.
Second.
And roll call, Stephanie, please.
Approve.
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 Okay, so you've been unanimously approved. What I do need you to do is come up and take these two petitions and sign anywhere and sign and date the
Okay.
bottom and hand them to Stephanie.
Okay.
And you're all set, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next matter is ZB 2008-48, a request for variance. The applicant, the attorney for the applicant is Attorney Victor Forsley. The property is 301 Chelmsford Street. This is in a regional retail district to raise an existing structure and construct a new commercial building within 15 feet of the USF residential zoning district in accordance with section 4.5.4 and 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. And Attorney Forsley has submitted a letter to the board requesting that this petition be withdrawn without prejudice. It's dated May 14th to the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. Attention Kim and Chairman Stephen Geary, and it says, to whom it may concern, please accept this communication as our request to withdraw the above petition from consideration by your board at the present time without prejudice. The petition is scheduled to be heard Wednesday, May 27, 2009, at City Hall at 6:30 p.m. Any comment on this? Mr. Bailey? Jack? Corey?
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
Rick?
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody here wishing to address the board in favor of this? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to oppose this withdrawal in opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed, and now I need to entertain a motion to...
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to withdraw without prejudice.
Second motion.
And roll call, please.
Approve.
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 Approve withdrawal.
Okay, that matter has been unanimously approved for withdrawal without prejudice. And we'll move along to the next petition, which is ZB 2009-17, a special permit, B3 Development, Brian Logue, 63 Varnum Ave, traditional single-family district, and the petitioner would like to expand the legal non-conforming use of an existing two-family to a three-family in accordance to section 4.5.2 of the zoning ordinance of non-conforming uses. Would somebody representing B3 Development please address the board? Good evening.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney James Hall, 25 Fletcher Street in Chelmsford, and I represent B3 Development. Brian Logue is with me, the principal of the petitioner.
Welcome,
And
sir.
it is correct, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, that we've already got you on the bench, Mr. Chairman. It is true, Mr. Chairman, that we are not looking for a variance or use variance. We're looking for a non-conforming use special permit under section 4.52. Which does not require a variance and does not consider a change in use in this situation. In this situation, I'd like to give you a little background. The property is located at 63 Varnum Avenue. That runs along the river between Mammoth Road and the extension of Varnum Avenue that runs by the hospital. And the neighborhood encompasses probably 10 large former single-family and two-family structures back in the 20s, which has really morphed into a district other than a single-family district. The road, as we all know, is very highly traveled. I spoke to someone at City Hall today at the planning department, and when I said, is this the most heavily traveled road in Lowell, it was either the first or second one. So it's located on a very highly trafficized street in Lowell. And its neighbors are McDonald's Hamburger Corporation. We have the Concord Family Youth Service Center, which is by there. there's a single-family home, there's a four-family home, and there's another two-family home. So those particular uses over the last 80 or 90 years since the bylaw was enacted in the 20s, it really has changed for whatever reason from a single-family home to more of a multifamily or business-oriented district. Another thing I'd like to point out before I get into the legalities of my argument is that the lot in question, I think you have a plot plan, shows that there was an existing, believe it or not, back in the 80s and 70s, a three-family, but since 1992, a legal two-family. And we probably all remember it if we've driven up towards that end of town. It's that red big house up on the hill with a big red X on it that the firemen put on about probably 10 or 15 years ago. It's been derelict, dilapidated, run down, fire hazard. The barn was open to the weather. It was an absolute disgrace, and it was that way for many, many years. And in my memory, I'd want to say 20 or 25. But I think you have a picture in your packet. You can see the trees that actually overgrew the house that were not trimmed. So what we have is a situation, a heavily traveled roadway, an isolated neighborhood with only 8 or 10 structures facing directly to the river, more of a business multifamily district than what it is on the map. So that's why we've come before you today to ask for a special permit under 4.5.2. I think the first thing when I looked at this was, well, and I've been in the business almost 40 years, we can't change a two-family district and put a three-family in there. That's a use variance. I mean, I think we're schooled that way. We've been schooled since 1976 when the law was changed. And, you know, I had a resistance to this particular thought until I read the bylaw, where it specifically addresses situations like this, where you can actually, the bylaw actually says that you, in a nutshell and in layman's terms, you take our zoning ordinance in this situation. We have a legal non-conforming two-family, and you throw it away. The zoning bylaw does not apply. So you have to clean your mind of the single-family districts, the two-family districts, the business districts, the multifamily districts. We don't have a zoning code that applies to this situation that we have before you this evening. So what do you apply? There has to be something to guide the board, and it is 4.2, entitled Non-Conforming Uses. It says the Board of Appeals may award a special permit to change a non-conforming use in accordance with this section only in 2 cases. So if you find that these 2 cases apply, you don't have to consider hardship. In fact, that isn't part of the equation. You don't have to consider our bylaw. If these 2 things apply, you may grant this extension of this non-conforming use. And I'll take the second one first. It says that only the following types of changes to the non-conforming uses may be considered by the Board of Appeals. And I contend this is ours. 1, change or substantial extension of the use. I think that's clearly what we can do. On the one hand, we could argue that this is a change from a 2-family to a 3-family. Or on the other hand, we could say, no, it's a substantial extension. We're changing this from 2 units to 3. We're substantially increasing the use. So under any interpretation of that second test, the board may consider this request. Now, what test does the board have to use when it considers this test? We look back to the first part of section 4.5.2, and it says the board may award a special permit to change a non-conforming use. We have a non-conforming 2-family in accordance with this section, only if it determines that such change or extension shall not be more substantially detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. So, in layman's terms, I think we have to look what was there before, and then we look what my client is proposing. And we have to ask, is the proposal substantially more detrimental than what is there today? And I submit, hopefully after I make my presentation and present my argument, that you'll find it's not only not more substantially detrimental, it's much more beneficial. So we're so far over the mark here that I would hope that the board would agree and we could build our 3rd unit. As I pointed out, we're in that heavily trafficized area. We have the rundown building. We have uses that surround us, more like multifamily or commercial. And I submit that if we were to repair and reconstruct the dilapidated, abandoned, rundown building and make it look like the pictures that we have in here. Some of the construction has already commenced, and it would be much more beneficial. It wouldn't be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. We would have 3 brand-new condo units. 3 single families would move into it. They would have the pride of home ownership. I don't think anyone could say that extra family would add to the 40 or 50,000 cars that go by the property every day would be substantially detrimental. But I think the removal of this eyesore, this removal of this health hazard for the fire department and the police and the neighborhood, and the replacement of it with this beautiful new 3-family, I contend would actually be substantially better than what is there. But at the very least, hopefully meets in the board's eyes the requirement that it is not substantially more detrimental. Now, in conclusion, I wouldn't stand here and say that this test should be used in every neighborhood of the city. I think we have a very, very unique situation. I hope I've described to the board. We have that heavily trafficked road that we wouldn't be putting single families on that road in 2009 like they did when it was a dirt road in 2020. The whole neighborhood's changed. It's not conducive to those little single families that we'd expect to find in other parts of the city. And with the rundown building, with the uses that are around there, I would hope I've convinced the board that this is in the best interest of the neighborhood, that it is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, but that the neighborhood would actually applaud the board. I think if you could ask most of the neighbors, I don't know if there's anyone here to object to this. Apparently there isn't. So I think that speaks volumes to this board. I know this went out to all of the neighborhood organizations. It's done that for years, and I think we're required by bylaw to do that. I know they have monthly meetings. I know if there's anything going on in Pawtucketville for the last 40 years, they were the most vocal, ardent supporters of their zoning in Pawtucketville. And there's not one person from Pawtucketville here today. And I submit that speaks volumes of how the neighborhood feels. For if there was any bit of disrespect for this particular petition, they would be here in droves, or at least their representatives would be here in droves. I used to fear the Centerville Association in many of these years ago, and they were ardent also, and they fought the good fight. But I think Pawtucketville has taken over that position. So if they're not here, I'd also throw that into my argument to say that it speaks volumes that the neighborhood is not in objection to this, and most probably in favor of this proposal. And I conclude my remarks and hopefully could answer any questions you might have.
I just have a couple, Jim. Is the proposal for a 3-family or for 3 condominium units?
It's a 3-family, but it would be designated 3 condominiums, yes. The use wouldn't matter. It could be 3 families, 3 dwelling units. That's what it is. But in fact, they're going to convert them to condominiums and sell them as units, condominium units.
So that's the plan, to convert them?
That is the plan. It would be 3 condominiums.
Were you able to get the input from the planning board and the engineers department? We just got these, so I don't know.
I did get the input. I agreed with it vehemently. I wasn't able to deal directly with them. I received some information from someone in the building department that went over them with me. I know there was some concerns with parking. I think if that was the sole concern of the board, and that was one of the main reason that this board would not go forward, I'm certain my client would adjust the parking. I think someone said the parking shouldn't be out front, it should be out back. There was some discussion, I know, about the back unit that was tied to the house. I don't think the planning board liked that. I don't know how that would have any relevance at all. They're not into that type of construction. It is illegal. The building department ruled that it would be legally attached to the house and part of the house so that there'd be only one building on this lot. I don't think the planning board, they deal with site plan review and roads and streets. I don't think they deal with designs. I think they probably just generally did not like the fact that this would be a 3-family in what they perceived to be a 2-family. Quite frankly, I don't know how much they reviewed 4.5.2 or how much input they put into it, but I know they generally did not have a very favorable opinion of the project. I don't know what the engineer said.
Right. Well, the engineer, I guess, can just read it to you. Applicant must provide evidence of sewer connection. The city has no record of this property connecting to municipal sanitary sewer. And then they question, is this property on a septic system? Is this application for condos or apartments? If it is for apartments, then 3 units may share a sewer connection. If it's for condos, there must be 3 separate connections. That's the first issue. Second issue, a driveway permit is required for this project, but I think you know that.
Yep.
The TSF zone calls for 3-foot setback from the property line and a 3-foot setback from the building. With the 16.5 clearance shown on the plan, the maximum driveway width can only be 10.5. Stormwater must be addressed as it relates to both the driveway and construction of the additional structures. There is more than a 10-foot difference in the elevation between this lot and the abutters. No runoff is allowed to affect the abutters' properties.
Well, I don't know if you want to comment.
Well, I guess my concern is that you've represented it's going to be condos.
Yes.
So that we can skip over a lot, because if it's going to be condos, then what the engineer's office is saying is you need to have 3 separate sewer lines.
We would certainly comply with that. That would be an absolute necessity. We wouldn't get a building permit. So I don't see any problem that we would comply with whatever stormwater regulations, any sewer tie-in regulations. I mean, I'd probably disagree with having 3, but if that's the requirement in the city, we'd have to comply with it. So I don't think I'd worry about that at this point, but you could put that in the special permit that we had to do that, and there'd be no problem, I'm sure.
And the driveway permit, they're just saying because of the TSF zone calls for 3-foot setback of the property line, a 3-foot setback from the building. The 16.5 clearance shown on the plan, the maximum driveway width can only be 10.5 feet.
And it has to be 15? Why doesn't it? The only thing I could say, that's the first I've heard of that, and I would have to review that, and if we were given a special permit and we needed a variance for some rule or regulation, we'd have to get it. I just have to look at it and see if maybe we could put the driveway someplace else, or maybe we can see exactly what he's talking about.
Right, I think that would be the only way you could get a driveway permit, so you wouldn't be able to
Right.
do the project without
So
it.
we'd have to comply with it. I mean, this board tonight might say, we put the parking someplace else. I really don't know about that. I wish I had had that earlier. I don't know when it came out, but
So is the plan, I looked at the old plans, and I do agree that, obviously, be hard for anybody not to agree that what's been going on there is going to be much better than what's there. I guess because the request is for a substantial extension, the plan is to extend a garage onto the back and then another unit onto the back of the garage? Is that?
no. Is the garage coming down? What's happening?
And
Excuse me.
he can address the
Go
board.
ahead, yeah.
So you just have to state your name and address for the record, please.
Brian Logue, principal member of B3 Development, 119 Drum Hill Road, Unit 333, Chelmsford, Mass. Originally, we had planned to just give the board a rough idea of what we could do over there. We don't have any plans drawn. That was just basically showing we could attach the structure to the existing structure, and we would accommodate that with a garage between the units. We would build Unit 3 on the other end of the garage. This is all taking place on the back of the house. And/or we've talked about some other designs with the garage with the Unit 3 above the garage. We had not been married to any particular design. We were more focused on trying to get the special permit before we got too deep into design layout or any of that stuff. But we did want to show that we could make one contiguous structure.
So is this basically a rendition of what, or am I looking at actual construction when I look at what's Tyvek?
The Tyvek is the existing, you're looking at the before photos, and the Tyvek is what is currently there from
Right, so
the same photos of what was the dilapidated house, of what we've currently got as a renovation project underway.
Right, so I see a new door that's a exit door, or just a door to the outside, that it looks like you were gonna build steps going down. That when I'm looking at the door, obviously you can't step down there, so it looks like the next stage there would be to build steps going down into the...
Correct.
Yeah, but what I'm asking, I guess, is the proposal or the suggestion that you're gonna put an addition attached to the end of that, and then what is this doorway gonna lead to?
Well, what we would have to do is address that for the fact is, I'm assuming that the picture you're looking at, do you have those pictures?
Yeah, I'm showing you right here. If you wanna take a look. I've seen it. You can take it back up with you if you want. I'm referring to right here.
Yes, that's actually.
You have to go back to the mic just because we can't hear you.
That is currently the entrance to the Unit 2. The way the units are laid out, Unit 1 is in the front, Unit 2 is in the back.
Okay.
That would be the entrance to Unit 2, and what we would do upon getting the special permit, we would have to reconfigure that setup with the doorway to put the addition on with the garage in the third unit, obviously.
Okay. All right. So if I could talk to Mr. Hall again
Sure.
for a second. So I guess the question is, Jim, if they, the board, as you know, doesn't usually approve anything on, ideas, because then we don't know what we're approving, and we go by there, and it's, it could be something entirely different than what we had in mind that the developer has in mind. So I think the first issue that we have is that we need some sort of idea as to what's going to go there, and without that, as with every petition, somebody will superimpose something and say it's going to be substantially like that, maybe a couple of variations, but substantially like that photo, and they superimpose it. It makes sense that everybody says, well, I'm not going to go through that expense and aggravation without getting the special permit, but we can't do it that way because it doesn't work for the board. So,
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chairman. This is the first time I heard that wasn't exactly what we were building.
Yeah.
So I would probably respectfully request that we continue this matter so that we do actually get what we're going to build for you, and when hopefully we get the special permit, Mr. Logue will sign that plan, and as many others have done before him, and he will build that. So I agree with you that this is not pretty much what I thought we had. We have a work in progress. I think we should have maybe something more that would show maybe 99% of what we're going to do. I think Brian's, in this economy, probably was thinking, and probably rightfully so, that he wouldn't have the money to do that if the board just threw this in the can. It'd be a waste of money, and money, as we know, is very tight at this time. But I would recommend that to him right now that we ask for continuance and get, hopefully, the best, cheapest plans we can find so that the board can make a reasoned decision.
okay, and while people are here, and I don't know if anybody is here in favor or in opposition, because we haven't called that out, but we'll finish the public hearing, and then we'll consider your request for a continuance.
Thank you.
So if you want to stay up, I don't know, Bill, do you have any questions for Attorney Hall?
A couple of questions. So you're explaining that they're going to be condo units.
Yes.
Are they going to be for sale or rental?
Well, I would think it would be for sale, but you can't really limit the ability to rent in this market with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
So
they won't give you a
it will be
mortgage.
an association?
There'll be an association of three unit holders, yes.
Okay. So the existing structure that's there right now, does that have 2 units in?
The existing structure has been deemed by the building inspector to be a legal two-family and has 2 units. Now, I don't know if it's been ripped apart, but it is deemed by Kathy Murphy and the building department, she's the zoning officer, that it is a two-family. We argue that it was a 3-family back many, many years, for decades, but that the former owner in 1992 acquiesced and returned it to a 2-family because the city said that it wasn't a legal 3-family. So I think it's I'm certain it's a 2-family. We still hopefully argue that it was a 3-family so many years ago that we're really putting it back to the way it was.
I guess my question was more around the construction that's taken place so far. I took a ride up on the property, took a ride in back, and based on the plans that are here, is that units 1 and 2?
The one that's built? Yes.
So looking at these plans here, like the proposed 2-car garage would be an extension off the existing building right now?
I think that's
And then
what
you would
Brian's-
be
Yes,
adding on to that?
yes,
Okay. And the total parking you're providing is 2 spots per unit?
Yes.
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay.
We have plenty of space for more parking if necessary, but 2 is on the plan, 2 per unit.
Is there anything you would do differently with the parking than what was proposed?
I would recommend to my client that we do anything that this board thought was reasonable. I know there's some disagreement. Some people that I've talked to say this is a great parking plan because each unit, the spaces pull right up to the unit. You can take your bags and your kids out of the car and go to the unit. Other people have said, well, it doesn't look good from the street. It's kind of a change. So, they should be in the back. So we've heard both arguments, and whatever the board felt was reasonable. Although we contend, and I think Brian contends, because I've had this discussion with them that it's really, for the convenience of the people living there and for the idea of this condo situation, it really is best. It's more serviceable the way he designed it, and he's probably right. Now, you have to weigh that against how does it look, I guess. You know, and I think both sides are reasonable to disagree.
Yeah, I guess my question was more around, have you thought about doing it? I'm not saying you need to change
Yep.
it, but beyond Unit 3, is that just going to be wooded area?
I believe so. Yes. Lawn, a wooded area, yeah.
Okay. And now, as far as if you go with the 3 units, what would you be doing for refuge or storage, anything around that?
Dumpster or city got trash? I think it'd be picked up by the city. I think it's 4 families or less they pick up, probably.
So
go with
everybody's
that.
going to have to bring all their stuff down to the street?
They probably would. I mean, that's what I'm
So you
hearing.
don't plan on having a dumpster?
Not at this time, but I think it'd probably be too small. I don't envision that would work.
Again,
and-
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, no, I
didn't
think it
see
would be,
that.
as he's
Okay.
saying, it would be the city, yep.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Jack?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Having lived in the area as long as I have and driving by, I would agree with the petitioner's counsel that it certainly would be aesthetically an improvement. I think it's wise, prudent, the recommendation of counsel to the petitioner that they look at a continuance, but not just for the plans. The other issues, I think, do need to be addressed. One is the stormwater from the engineering's department, and I'm not sure the attorney even had a chance to see this, but it states there is more than 10 feet difference in elevation between this lot and the abutters. No runoff is allowed to affect abutting properties. I think that's something also that needs to be addressed. That would be a concern, and certainly the continuance would allow him that opportunity. And obviously the issue of the separate sewer for each unit. And if he does comply with the driving according to the TSF zone, then I guess that would give him an opportunity as well to reiterate that as well. Those would be the concerns, because I think the 3 of them are all legitimate. That being said, and most importantly, I think Attorney Hall addressed the simple fact there's no one here in opposition. So I think if the memorandum from the engineering's office is addressed and there's no one in opposition, I would then certainly consider supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, looking at it, I guess, one option with the parking in the front, because I agree, maybe aesthetically, that's not exactly what planning and development has in mind, but there could possibly be some proposed shrubbery in front of the parking. If you look at the engineering plan that you've proposed, it seems like there's enough area there to do that. Some trees or bushes or something like that might be something you might want to consider, or you might want to run by planning and development for their input, so probably more experienced at that than we are. Other than that, I guess my other question is on the, looking at the unit as it exists right now from the plan, and then the proposed 2-car garage, and then there's unit 3, why wouldn't there be any parking beneath unit 3 if you do something like that? Is there an option to do that, or is that just something the developer didn't have in mind? And I guess that's questions for the developer.
Parking under Unit 3?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, I went out there, it looks like the elevation goes down, so it almost lends itself to,
It does tend to slope down, but the site itself has a lot of large pieces of granite, not that deep beneath the surface. So in order to keep the height of the structure within reason in what we've already got on site and not make it look like some albatross, we figured that 2-car garage in between, one for Unit 2, one for Unit 3, and then we'd have the Unit 3 instead of having parking under Unit 3. The other alternative we had was where we had the garage and then the unit above it. But again, we were looking at a couple of different options. So we're trying to keep aesthetically the property, the addition looking like it belongs with the house.
Well, that was my point. So, and again, I'm not, trying to think of exactly what the house looked like in the back, but because the house was so high, wouldn't that third proposed addition be very low as opposed to the rest of the house, or does?
Well, not with the unit 2. The front of the unit's very high. It's 3 floors.
Yeah.
That unit 1. Unit 2 is only 2 stories. So in order to maintain some semblance with the back of the house, we're trying to keep the height of the whole project.
So in other words, you wouldn't have high, low, high if you did that.
Yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
high and then steady.
Yeah, and if it was a little bit higher, just so it would look right, you don't have this big long trunk on the back of the house, but not necessarily 3 floors matching the front unit, so you'd have a 3-story, 2-story, 3-story type of structure there. So we're looking at those options, but we hadn't nailed one down yet. We wanted to get some feedback from the board and see if we could continue with this before we got too involved in the plans.
Okay, that's all I have. Corey?
I don't have any questions at the time, Mr. Chairman. I will comment, though, after we close the hearing to the public.
Okay. Rick, anything?
I'll wait to hear from the public.
Okay. All right. So anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition? Please step up and address the board. One at a time is fine. You can just... So you just please have to state your name and your residential address for the record.
My name is John Hamblett.
Can you spell that, sir?
It's Hamblet. And I live on that now infamous, heavily traveled Varnum Avenue,
What address?
495 Varnum Avenue.
So you're on the hospital side?
On the other side of the hospital.
But on that stretch that goes towards...
As
You're
it
not
head-
on the main
As it
thoroughfare?
heads down towards Tingsboro.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
I'm a resident of Pawtucketville and a member of the Pawtucketville Citizens Council Executive Board. There are 3 from the Executive Board here tonight and 2 members of the Pawtucketville Citizens Council in opposition. On behalf of the residents of Pawtucketville, I ask that you deny the request for the special permit. My request is based on the Pawtucketville Master Plan, the Lowell Master Plan, and the new zoning laws. With the implementation of new zoning in 2004 and the update in 2006, the City of Lowell addressed our concerns with the quality of neighborhood development in the Lowell Master Plan. They established districts that more accurately reflect the character of existing neighborhoods, much like the traditional single-family neighborhood where 63 Varnum is located. That master plan also recognized that Pawtucketville was under strong and growing development pressure, exactly what you see here tonight. As a result, in March of 2004, the Lowell City Council voted to direct the city manager to have the Department of Planning and Development work with us, the Pawtucketville Citizens Council, to produce a Pawtucketville neighborhood plan. The purpose of that plan was to create a shared vision of our neighborhood and to set policies and guidelines to implement that vision over a 10-year period. DPD and a representative group from the neighborhood, the Citizens Action Council, collaborated with residents, business people, and other stakeholders. A member of this zoning board of appeals sat on the council that wrote the Pawtucketville Master Plan. The Pawtucketville Master Plan reinforces the 2004 zoning regulations along the boulevard and Varnum Avenue. Where zoning changes were recommended, they were more strict, never less. My neighborhood has certain characteristics about it, characteristics that I enjoy. When our zoning law defines some of those characteristics, it purposely excludes multiple family housing. Preserving neighborhood character is one of the strongest underlying themes in the master plan. We encourage the development of multiple family homes in those areas where it's zoned for such, and where a multiple family home contributes to, not detracts from, the neighborhood. This request for a special permit increases the density of this parcel by 50%. Well, but Mr. Hamblin, it's only one parcel. But that is exactly why we have the new zoning laws. If every parcel in Pawtucketville were to increase in the same density in a corresponding amount, we would have an additional 7,000 residents living on top of the 14,000 we have now. Please do not set a precedent. Increased density results in increased crime, increased public service utilization without a corresponding increase in property taxes. When you look at the research done on fiscal impact of different types of housing, and that would be page 36 of the Lowell Master Plan, you will see that only single-family housing in Pawtucketville has a positive fiscal impact. Multiple family dwellings have a negative financial impact on our city. Who will pay for these multiple family developments? You and me and the rest of the citizens of Lowell. The residents of Pawtucketville have made their feelings about increased density perfectly clear. Do you recall a few years ago what happened when a change was proposed in the laws regarding in-law apartments? It was soundly defeated. Ask my Pawtucketville neighbors how they feel about the Grandview with its 11 variances and special permits, which, by the way, still stands half empty. Members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, to be consistent with the Lowell Master Plan, the Pawtucketville Master Plan, to support our existing updated zoning laws, to avoid increased density, increased crime, and increased taxes, and to support the neighborhood character that this citizen of Lowell so cherishes, I ask you, please vote no for this special permit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition of this petition? In opposition? Good evening, sir. Please state your name and address for the record and tell us what you want to say.
Patrick Regal, 36 Ellis Avenue.
Welcome, sir.
How you doing? Yeah, just worrying about the, space in the backyard, everybody's going to want to fill in the yard with another house, you know what I mean? That's what I'm worried about. The neighbor next door wanted to build condos, and he got shut down a couple of years ago. The guy with the Zog fence and stuff, he has a big backyard, so I'm
Right.
just worried about
Just so you know, and I'm sure everybody does know, that we don't take these things based on everything else. We take these
Yep.
cases because we have to, pursuant to
Yes.
40A,
Yep.
on a case-by-case basis, because every property is unique in its own way. So that's how the board has to view this project. We can't view it in the entirety, except as it does apply to the City of Lowell Master Plan and zoning, so.
if it was apartments, it'd be all right if you just lived in the place and took care of it, you know what I mean? Kept up with the place, but he just, he bought the building all messed up, and now he wants to build another condo in the back, and normally he bought it for 2 units, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
I looked at the property too.
Have you seen an improvement at all in it?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay.
It's been sitting for a long time because the gentleman who owned it he wanted a lot of money for the property. So that's why it was like empty for a long time.
Okay. Is there
Basically.
anything else you'd like to say, sir?
That's about it.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Anybody else wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? Good evening, sir.
Yes. Good
Please
evening.
state your name and address for the record.
Raymond Hoag, Hoag, 83 Varnum Avenue, and 81. It's a two-family house. I want to thank you for letting us speak tonight. Based on, like Mr. Hamlet said, the city master plan and the Pawtucketville plan both want to create in existing neighborhoods. From Mammoth Road to Starboard Street, which I consider my block, I live 2 houses from the proposed addition. I don't know what Mr. Hall feels about business, but the only business there is McDonald's. And from McDonald's to the Lowell General Hospital, from Varnum Avenue, Ellis Avenue, West 5th, back to St. Rita's Church, that's all houses. The only businesses are on Mammoth Road itself, and those have been there forever. But that neighborhood, once you step into it, it's all residential. And I do agree, having lived next to the house when it had the red X on it, that the work that has currently been done is outstanding as a two-family. From the corner of Mammoth Road to Starboard Street, we moved into the house that we live in 1948, and it was always zoned two-family. When you went beyond that, you could have multiples. Corner of Ellis Avenue, some other houses, if you went on the other side of Mammoth Road, but that particular block was always just two families. From Mammoth Road to Starboard Street, there's 12 houses. Out of the 12, 6 of them are two-family, and 6 of them that are two-family are owner-occupied, my house being one of them. There's 4 single homes, and there's 2 group homes, and you add McDonald's to the corner. One of the group homes is currently vacant. The one that he mentioned that's owned by Concord Services, that house has been vacant. We're under the impression that in the future, House of Hope is looking at that one. And the other one is a small cape that's beyond my house, which is owned by the Lowell Adult Retarded, and there's 4 gentlemen that live in that house, but there's 2 group homes. The character of that neighborhood, my house was built in 1824, the oldest house in the neighborhood, and it was built as a two-family. I mean, that's the character of the neighborhood. To create a spot zone to put a 3-family in, it just doesn't go with everything that's been happening there. Since we've lived there, like I said, it's all 2 families. I don't know where he comes up with the 4-family house. I don't know of any 4-family houses. Just like to see the neighborhood and the area stay the way it is. It's zone 2. It should be kept 2, because there's a lot of houses there that have big backyards, and if somebody gets away with adding 3, next door neighbor might say, if he got away with 3, and I've got just as big a yard as he does, I could add 3. The one on the other side of him's got twice the amount of space he has. So, I mean, if you do it for one, it just opens the floodgates for people who want to make more money, or make money, period, to add on to those big homes that are there. So I would appreciate a no vote on giving him a special permit for that particular project.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak in opposition? In opposition? Okay, hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Attorney Hall, do you want to address the board?
I just want to say, when I look back, I didn't see anyone say they were objecting, so I want to
didn't either.
apologize to the board. And my other statement that the Pawtucket group always defends their neighborhood was certainly true, though. So I expect nothing less than them. I think, just to respond to the gentleman, I received the information of the 4-family from my client. He probably was that other group home. There was one group home from Concord, and the other group home was probably the 4-family. I didn't mention anything about 2 group homes, so that was probably the misunderstanding between my client, that we have 4 people living in one home. Maybe that was the 4-family. And then we had the other group home.
Okay.
But other than that, I have nothing else to say.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. No other input from the public. We'll open up to the board for consideration. Jack? I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey. Bill?
What are we addressing now?
Well, I think when we first went around, we didn't have the input from any opposition or anybody in favor. So if there's anything you'd like to add on top of what you had commented on last time.
Yeah. Well, one thing I just want to make clear, is there any condo associations on that strip of 12 homes in that neighborhood? No? Okay.
And the ones that are 2-family are all
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Jack?
First thing I'd like to do is to, through you, Mr. Chairman, is to commend the association for the presentation. I was impressed. I guess one of the questions I would have, has the petitioner approached any of you about the design, about any of the concepts that were presented tonight?
Anybody answering the question has to answer it from the podium, please.
No, although we are approached quite frequently by the major institutions in the area, we have not been approached by anybody at 63 Varnum.
Thank you. I respectfully submit, I think I've moved my position somewhat. First, being impressed by the neighbor's presentation. Secondly, and I hate to use the word assume, I guess I basically state to the petitioner and anyone listening, when you come before this board with a petition, it is incumbent upon the petitioner to reach out to the abutters for no other reason except they don't know what's going on. And if you inform them, they may respectfully disagree with your position, but at least they'll come here enlightened. And who knows, at that introduction, at that meeting, perhaps there's some sort of compromise that can be reached. And it always, perhaps troubled me is the wrong word, but it disturbs me a bit to think that a petitioner that's putting the time and effort into a project like this doesn't extend the overture to the abutters. It really behooves every petitioner to do so. That being said, I'm going to reserve my right to listen to the other members of the board and see if we are going to decide to vote this evening or whether or not there'll be a continuance. Thank you.
And, you know, my feeling really hasn't changed that much. I think that so long as the petitioner is going to comply with what the engineer's requiring, if it's going to be condos, based on that lot, as I saw it when I went out there, I don't think it's too much of a, it's not a request that I think is at all unreasonable. I look at the plan, I look at what he's dealing with there. We have to deal with this on a case-by-case basis, and it appears to me as though it's a pretty decent project, but we don't have anything to go by what the third unit would look like. If I had that, I could be more certain as to where I'd go, but the theory of what he's proposing, so long as all the issues are addressed that are addressed in the engineer's memo, including, you know, the parking area in front to kind of enhance the aesthetics, and I'd want to make sure that the additions are historically consistent with, you know, the main house. I think I'd still be in favor of this project, but that's just my feeling. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. For starters, I would like to commend the neighborhood for coming out here tonight, expressing their feelings. And secondly, to the proposed builder, commend them on the work they have done to this point. Giant strides have come along on that parcel. There's no doubt about it. But what we're looking at here is a neighborhood with predominantly single-family homes, a handful of multis, not very many. In many cases, some of the homes are a few centuries old. Now, the direct abutter to the right of this parcel is a beautiful old Victorian that's on a large lot that sits on a hill. It's very, very aesthetically pleasing. And abutter to the left is a single family that's maintained fairly well at the same time. And here we are, we're looking to put, you know, a three-family in the middle of all that. I think with the lot you have here, I mean, we have basically almost 28,000 square feet, which sounds good for a three-family on the surface. But basically from the proposed third unit to the rear of the lot is about 75 feet of what's going to be wooded area. Now, basically, in my opinion, it's the topography of the land here that works against this project. And, you know, it's basically rendered useless. So therefore, you're cramming in a lot on, in actuality, about 75% of what you have here. I just think it might be a bit much for the lot. I am willing to take a look at what you're looking to do there. I do want to see, as the chairman stated, I'm not prepared to vote on this tonight. I don't think any of the board members are. But I do want to see what your, a rendition of what you're looking to build. And, if you want to keep in contact with the neighborhood, see on their feelings on it, I'd certainly keep an open mind. But I can't, and I know you're willing to make the sewer upgrades and all that, and, it seems, I know the developer has good intent, and that's not the issue here. The problem is the character of the neighborhood, which is predominantly singles, and frankly, I think it might be a bit much at this time. But I will certainly keep an open mind. If you want to keep in contact with the neighborhood, show them what you're looking to do. If you have their blessings, you'll have mine. But at this point, I'm leaning against the petition. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. Rick?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I went out to the property. I've known it pretty well as an inspector in the city. We did some work over there. I think it's a little much for the area, being a third unit out there also. They're all two families, single families. We do have some businesses mixed in there. And I commend the neighborhood to come out and speak, and give us their feelings. It's just a little too much for that area. I think one of the gentlemen said it, he bought a two-family. It is a two-family. You're just trying to put a little bit too much back there. I wouldn't be in favor of it. There's a lot of stuff he has to do out there also with the city engineer, with the water lines, the sewer lines, the meters. He has a lot. At this time, I wouldn't see it feasible for the lot area and for the neighborhood. And with the opposition, unless you can sway the neighbors, I would not be in favor of it to do that to the neighbors or the neighborhood out there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Bill?
So are we asking the petitioner to come back again with another set of plans? or-
Well, I'm going to ask the petitioner if he'd like to readdress the board.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Through you, that was the other thing I wanted to add. I wouldn't want to ask this gentleman to go and have all kinds of plans drawn up, for stormwater management, for parking and all that stuff. I mean, it's up to them if they would like to continue, but if they're going to start incurring a lot of costs with stormwater management plans, sewer line, all that stuff, I just wouldn't want to know how they feel about it. It doesn't seem favorable at this time, but if he wants to continue to spend money, that would be up to the petitioner.
Okay. Mr. Hall?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'd request the continuance. I think it
Okay.
would serve
Stephanie, when is our next meeting? Do you want the one after that, or do you
I
want...
think if we could have a couple of extra meetings,
Yeah.
maybe 45 days or
What is
more.
what's the first meeting in July? Does that work for you?
It's a good date.
July
I hope it isn't a
13th.
Friday.
July 13th. Just one second. For the board members, that's usually a heavy vacation week. Does anybody plan on not being available? Because we want to make sure we have a quorum for that night. I know that I am not available that night. So anybody else not available?
We could extend it out, Mr. Chairman, if you want. I don't think time is going to be of
When
the
you get up to
essence.
that date, if you need it, if you need an extension, if you don't feel like you're not ready, you can just request it through the building
I
department.
mean, we could put it into late July or August. I'd rather have 5 members here. I think if 4 members would be devastating to us.
What, July 27th?
Okay?
Okay. July 27th.
That's fine.
The board has to vote to accept the continuance if that's what they want to do. So the petition is requesting a continuance until...
Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to continue until the petition needs ample time, and I do hope he will keep in contact with the neighbors and see if they can work out a compromise. I'd be willing to do
Right,
that.
and just to be fair, to tell you, Council, what we're looking for, what I'm looking for anyway, would be pretty definitive plans as to what that third unit would look like.
Right.
I'd also like to see a landscaping plan, because, it is border on the line of a
Right.
development, so I think to address the issues of the aesthetics in that area, it can be a beautiful area, and I think that this project can actually enhance that area if it's done right. If it's done just to get the units and sell them, it's not going to work, and then I would agree with the neighborhood association and the rest of the board members, but if the plan is presented properly, I think it can actually enhance that area, especially that end of it where it's on Mammoth Road. So, anybody else have any issues that they'd like to see addressed prior to that time?
Does the parking meet all the requirements?
I believe it does. I believe that, and if it doesn't, they would have to come in for a variance.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think a stormwater management plan, what he'd be required to do out there.
Right, and
also the driveway width, whether the driveway width complies or not.
So what would encourage you to do, like we encourage everybody, is to stay in touch with the engineer's office, stay in touch with the building department, so when you come back with your proposed plan, that everything's all set, and we don't have any, I guess, negative comments from the board. I don't anticipate that you're going to get any positive feedback from the planning board because they've given you their opinion. I think the neighborhood association made it very clear what their position is. I don't expect that to change. So as far as the engineering, if you come back with issues that aren't addressed there, it's just going to make it more difficult.
I've written down the 3 or 4 that you mentioned.
Right, and there's also a memo, so you can get that memo from Lisa DeMeo as well,
Right.
and any other memos that came out on this. I'd entertain a motion to continue until July, what was that, Stephanie? 27th.
Mr. Chairman, that being said, I'll make a motion to continue till July the 27th, 2009.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Continue to July 27th.
Continue?
Continue July 27th.
Continue, July 27th.
Continue.
Okay, this matter's been continued to July 27th. For the Pawtuckaville Association, just so you know, there will not be any public hearing, so please remember that date. It won't be advertised again. You're all welcome to come to that hearing that day and address the board if you have any other issues. And again, it won't be advertised, so that will be the next hearing. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, one thing?
Yes, one thing, excuse me.
I don't know, I'm just giving you an idea, you're gonna have to check with the state to open up the highway to get that sewer line out there, so, I don't know where the line is, so just should bear that in mind.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Where's my mask? Okay, the final matter on the public hearing tonight is ZB 2006-78, an administrative review of previously granted relief regarding Connecticut Park Holding LLC, National Development. This is the Lowe's project at 790, 816, 824, 836, and 826.1 Chelmsford Street to allow the use of a retail home improvement store and internally illuminated signage and off-premises signage and variants of signage, dimensions, locations, and materials. Mr. Alides.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. George Theolides Jr., for the record, 133 Market Street, Lowell. And I'm here this evening, I guess, as the face of Lowe's one more time, which I have managed to be here for over 3 years. I noticed that this petition was first filed 3 years ago, and as you all know, it has quite a history of appeals and litigation, etc. If you've been by the site, you've seen that it's on its way finally, which is quite an impressive location now that the buildings are down. And for informational purposes, I think it's helpful for the board to understand that there are really 2 phases to the completion of the project. Phase number 1 relates to my client, who is National Development, who's the owner or representative of the owner. The actual owner is Connector Park Holdings, as our application indicates originally, who are also the owners of the called Twin Towers adjacent to that. We once They were once represented by Brian Clancy. I think you probably, those of you who were on the board from the last hearing, remember. We now have Sam Wolf, who's taking Brian's place admirably, I might add. And you probably remember Ken Staffier, who's the VHB architect who put a lot of time and effort into the process. The job for National Development and Connector Holding is to prepare the site and the pad to turn over to Lowe's, who will then construct their building. We're at the stage of preparing the site, and that included, obviously, in the first instance, the demolition, and now to go forward and complete all the infrastructure that is necessary, the piping and everything else that goes along to get the pad ready for Lowe's. As I indicated in my letter to the chairman and to the board, one of the conditions back in 2007, I think, was the date of our decision. And by the way, there were 32 planning board conditions and 18 zoning board conditions. I think it's the most conditioned property that probably ever was permitted by the zoning board and the planning board. A lot of those have already been met. If you've been up on the site, you'll see that in addition to the site work itself, there's an awful lot of road work going to, as we indicated, that would be done to assist in traffic, etc. Anyway, condition number 4, as I indicated in my letter, relates to the Chelmsford Street side and the construction of a wall and the installation of trees, shrubs, and landscaping acceptable to DPD. I'm basically reading the condition, but requiring final approval by the ZBA. That's principally why we're here this evening. With my letter to the board, Mr. Chairman and members, I submitted a plan that was generated by work done by the VHB people and by Mr. Wolf and at National Development in concert and conference with the DPD, as we were required to do under that condition. And I should have asked at the outset, I intended to ask at the outset, Mr. Chairman, I know that I just received quite late this afternoon, and I was told that you as well received a correspondence from the DPD.
We did. We received, or I received, and I've shared it with the board as much as I can with the limited time we had.
I did make some extras.
Okay.
Would that help?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Does anybody need one? If you just... Oh, you go and Bill, do you need one? You guys each need one, right? So just Corey.
The plan that was worked out has a combination of a serpentine wall, landscaping, trees, shrubs, etc. And I think when Mr. Wolf, who has some other materials along with him that he will show you tonight, you'll see that there are concerns about the wall itself for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that it is susceptible, unfortunately, and you'll see a very graphic picture that Mr. Wolf has, to an awful lot of things like graffiti. And if there's anything that, if we stop and look, in my recollection of a great part of the discussion that took place with reference to the wall, bearing in mind, by the way, that the parking lot for Lowe's will be substantially, I think it's some 10 or more feet below the, 10 feet below the surface of Chelmsford Street. So we're not talking about an area and a store and a structure that will be at the Chelmsford Street level. Initially, it will be approximately 10 feet below. So one of the concerns that I know that we discussed at the hearing was the fact that this wall, on the one hand, may produce some assistance with reference to noise, and I think that's questionable. But as we all know, walls of that type in a neighborhood situation like that, I think sometimes become, in the essence, in the form of an attractive nuisance, as they say in the law. The next thing you know, people either want to climb all over them or write all over them. And so instead of having an amenity, we end up with something other than an amenity and a problem. In addition to that, they're also, instead of assisting with keeping the rubbish, et cetera, that might be thrown out in the streets in a manner that will be easily assembled and picked up, it really ends up picking up a lot of that space. So what we tried to do, in concert with the discussion that we had with the DPD folks and the planning that was done, and let me note again, the only thing that the condition says is construction of a wall and installation of trees, shrubs, and landscaping acceptable to DPD, but requiring final approval. So there was nothing spoken of the number of trees, number of plants, size and shape of the wall, other than it's serpentine and brick. Anyway, as a result of that, we produced plan number 1, which was submitted with our original application, and I believe you all got a copy of in the first instance.
George, the DPD refers to it as alternative A and alternative B. Are you talking about alternative 1?
Correct.
Being alternative A?
Okay. A is 1, right.
Okay.
And we have with us tonight, I guess we actually have extra sets of A or 1 if anybody needs it for any reason, don't we, Ken? I think. Yeah, and we also have with us alternative B as well. Okay. I should note at the outset that alternative A has been approved by the DPD. In other words, they find that acceptable. Alternative B, if you note from their recent correspondence, hot off the press, is something that they think needs a little bit more tweaking. We feel, and that's why we submitted in the first instance, we feel the first plan acceptable to them is a plan that we could go with, and we're asking you to look at in terms of approval. On the other hand, are we amenable to talking some more about it? I would say that we are. So without too much further talk at the moment on my part, I'm going to ask Sam to come up and give you a little more of the thoughts of the owner-developer. And then Ken is also with us and has the new plan, the alternate plan B, and we can also answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So I'm Sam Wolf with National Development, which is at 2310 Washington Street in Newton. I don't want to go over everything that was just said so that you hear the same thing twice. There are a couple of points I guess I would like to make in regards to the overall landscaping plan that we're looking for your approval of tonight. We've spent a lot of time and energy with consultants, et cetera, looking at how to construct this landscaping plan in a way that works. We're talking about an area between a retaining wall, which varies between 5 and 10 feet at various points, and then a sidewalk, which has an average of about 10 feet wide. And while 10 feet in some circumstances is a lot of room, in this particular case, there's a lot going on. We're required with the retaining wall to have a fence, a cyclone fence, basically right inside the wall. And then there's a guardrail, which is 3 feet from the inside face of the wall. And then we would have the remaining area for landscaping. The original plan was to have a vegetation barrier, and I brought some materials which are basically what was originally shown to the board when the vote was taken before. The first, I think it's 6 pages, are all there's a couple of cuts which show the area in question with the amount of area we have to landscape. And then the last 2 pages, I spent a little time trying to find a serpentine wall that was some form of similar to what we were looking for. I only found one, and it's along the Mass Pike. I imagine most people who've driven the eastern portion of the Mass Pike have seen it. It's sort of on the Alston-Brighton area. It was hard to take a picture of. I can tell you I wasn't trying to take a picture that would come out quite as poorly as that one did, but that was about the best angle I could get. And certainly collecting some trash and collecting graffiti as well. I don't think it's serving the purpose that it was originally intended to serve. So that's sort of on that. I think that in one of the limitations of having a wall in that area, which is relatively confined, is that it means that we can't plant trees which are quite as large as we would otherwise be able to plant. This is pointed out in the letter from the DPD, as well as it's unlikely that the trees would be able to grow to the same size with the wall in place, because the footing of the wall is 2 feet wide and 2 feet down. That'll impinge on the root growth, et cetera. So it is somewhat likely that those trees will not reach full maturity. I think that is, again, I don't want to cover the same ground that Mr. Eliades has already covered. So I'm hoping that, I think that's about all I have. We have Ken Staffier here from VHB if there are questions about the nature of that area or the wall, since I'm not an engineer.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I did want to just highlight a couple of other matters about this current plan and the situation itself. Let's keep in mind, I think that's important, what is it that the wall is supposed to accomplish? And principally speaking, a wall of this nature is not going to in any way screen what's below it, or at least that certainly shouldn't be the principal reason for it. I think the intent was to try to find a way of doing something about noise. However, we're talking about a brick wall that on a natural basis is going to, even serpentine, is going to ricochet sounds back out into the street. So it would seem to me we're not holding, the wall isn't holding noise from the Lowe's store away from neighbors across the street. And if anything, about all it's accomplishing is ricocheting the sound off of there. In addition to that, those of you who were at the last hearing, and I think 3 of you were, if I'm not mistaken, would probably remember the city and the board asked for a better finish on the landscape area of the building on the Chelmsford Street side, and there was an upgrade done on all of the metal work that's there, so that from a visual standpoint there would be a nicer looking structure, so that the entire side of the Chelmsford Street side of the building was upgraded for appearance purposes. Really, by putting up the wall, we're going a long way to hiding what that upgrade was going to generate by way of a betterment. So, if I'm not sure how you want to proceed, Mr. Chairman, whether you'd like to look at alternate Plan B as well at the same time, or whether you just want to talk and ask or inquire about alternate Plan A, and I'll leave that up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I think just from my point of view, just looking at these pictures, I think the reason why we wanted DPD approval is because this is more of their thing rather than ours. I mean, we put the conditions on because we wanted, I think my memory is at least twofold, that we wanted it to look aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors who originally opposed this project, and they were looking across the street. And then I think the issue of sound barrier did come up. But if I'm looking at these pictures, and I guess my question is, these photos that project photos that go out to 3 to 5 years, the wall behind it is, with the pillars and the fence in between, is that something that is proposed in place of the serpentine wall? I guess so. I'm looking at, I want to make sure I understand what I'm looking at.
I'll let
Yep.
Ken speak to that. Is there a particular number, Mr. Chairman?
There's not. I mean, if you go to the front, right, if you flip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, page 6. This is Chelmsford Street looking northeast, projected 3 to 5 years.
What you're seeing there is what George had touched upon, which was the upgrade to the architecture on the garden center portion of the
Okay.
Store. So,
So-
that's actually on the building itself, and that's the upgrade. It's columns that were added. I mean, typically the garden center on a Lowe's is a fence line with no wall. And what Lowe's agreed to through the planning board process and with DPD was this, the columns and an upgrade to the fencing along the Chelmsford Street side of the facility.
And that's a cast iron fencing or something similar?
It's probably something similar.
Right.
I
I mean, my question, because I like that look, so you're saying that just covers the garden center portion?
That's
And then we
part
go
of
to, so if I go one page before that, looking southeast 15 to 20 years, I guess I have to look at the one before where it says southeast looking 3 to 5 years, because, let's face it, 15 to 20 years, who knows? So, is that wall in place of the serpentine wall, or is that even a wall back there?
I think what you're still seeing is with the white canopy above, that's the garden center still.
Yep.
And that, like I said, that's the upgrades that were part of the architecture. What you're seeing is when we first proposed this, and these are actually from the original design plans, we worked with the DPD to develop as significant a vegetative screen as we possibly could along the Chelmsford Street side of the development. And that's what this is representing, that it's, it creates a streetscape feel with the shade trees along with no wall. And then they're backdropped by different plant materials to help create a screening of the parking field. One of the things that when we worked through this originally with DPD, they were afraid that putting in any kind of wall or fencing originally was going to separate the development from the residents a little bit too much. It would divide it, almost create a feeling like it's a castle or something that divides the neighborhood. And this is something that we worked out pretty diligently with the DPD to develop a landscape screening that provided interest and screening along the length of Chelmsford Street that met with their approval originally. And the serpentine wall was something that was thrown in as part of the conditions in the ZBA process.
At the end?
Yes. And I think one thing to touch upon that wasn't discussed in the plan that we've worked through, the alternative A that we've worked through with the DPD, we've agreed to upsize some of the trees and some of the evergreens, size them up a little bit more so you're going to get a little bit more substantial screen to start out. So when we first plant those trees, we're going to have larger canopies, taller evergreens to build create this screen a little bit sooner. So we'll fill in a little bit sooner than maybe the 15, 20 years down the road.
Right, so I think the whole reason, again, that we referred that to DPD is because they're the experts at that, and not as we just, at least from my point of view, we just wanted to make it the best we can for, not only the city and everybody going by there, but also more specifically for those neighbors who have that neighborhood right across the street. And I guess I have to assume that planning and development have the same goals as that. And I like what's proposed in Plan A, but there's also things in Plan B that I like too. So why don't we open up to the board and see what everybody else thinks? Bill?
So referencing the same page that you were looking at, Mr. Chairman, looking northeast, that's the Chelmsford Street looking towards the proposed garden center, is that correct?
That's correct.
So that shows
From the 99 side, Mr. Bailey.
on the 99 side, yep.
I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Sorry, looking northeast.
Northeast?
I think southeast is the 99 side, but I'm not sure.
Right.
It's
So
looking northeast, so
Looking
it's-
northeast is running along Chelmsford Street, where it shows Albert Street, Victoria, and, okay.
Correct.
So it's a sidewalk, and then you have the trees. Then does the land actually slope down, and there's a guardrail?
Yes,
Okay, and then after that, there's a chain link fence?
there's a chain link fence.
And how high is the chain link fence?
The chain link fence will be 6 foot high. It's for fall protection.
For
Because the
what
retaining
protection?
wall, there's a retaining wall
Yep.
beyond that
Okay.
drops off, 6 to 10 feet, depending
Okay.
on where you are along.
And then beyond that is the, I guess I'll call them the pillar structures?
Correct, that's the garden center.
Okay. And is that, where the garden center is that also some type of, is that black fencing, or what?
It's an upgraded fence through the
Okay.
garden center. It's black fencing. And actually, the chain link fence should have been shown as black on this, so the chain link fence will
Oh,
blend
okay.
away as well.
Okay.
That's a key.
No, I agree with the chairman. I like the look of this. I think without going with, to me, putting up a wall, it'd be like, I have to agree with you. It's like a total separation. I don't see where it blend. And to me, that graffiti thing also comes into effect too, because we know what happens with walls. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Jack?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I agree with both the chairman and Mr. Bailey. I think aesthetically, that particular design from looking northeast is really, really beautiful. I think it complements the neighborhood. I think it's just aesthetically very pleasing to look at. I will make one comment about a brick wall. My previous working career in the music industry, I can tell you that about the two worst acoustic properties you could look at are glass and brick. And I could not agree more with counsel that brick does nothing but enhance sound inherently. That and glass are about the two worst properties. And I think this particular design is one that I would be totally in favor of supporting.
Thanks, Jack. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. For starters, I would like to commend the developer for what's going on up to this point. You certainly lived up to your part of the bargain when this board approved that petition some time ago with the sewer upgrades and the infrastructure and the rapid pace that it's all going on. It's very, very remarkable. And I am sure it only ensures my decision that I did support the petition. But I do, as the chairman stated, and the other board members, the column style outside the garden area is very, very nice. I think that's far and above what I ever expected, to be honest with you. So that's very, very nice. And the trees, the shrubbery along the street with the guardrail and that is acceptable. And I think it's more aesthetically pleasing than brick, to be honest with you. It's more of a fortress, it's fortress-like look when you have a brick wall. But one thing that does sadden me is that, the neighbors aren't here. And, they fought very, very hard. They were here just as all you people were throughout that whole approval process. And I'm sure they would like a little input at this point, but I don't know if that's doable at this time. But I'm not even quite sure if it was their request or the board's request, to be honest with you either. But I find Plan A the better of the two, Mr. Chairman. I know there's good points in Plan B as well. But I don't know, do we have the time to send it back to planning and development and come back and go back and forth is my question.
Well, I think there's plenty of time. The question is there a need to do that? I mean, I'm more than happy with Plan A because it appears to be something that DPD strongly supports. They've clearly worked with them. My only suggestion would be that the maturity of the trees be enhanced even more if you can do that. If we approved Lot A tonight, Plan A tonight, is there a chance that the caliber of the tree can be enhanced more than you've already agreed upon with DPD?
It is possible, and it's something I have to discuss with Sam, and we'd have to look into the availability. Right now, we upped it from 2 to 2, and it was 2 to 2.5 inch was the original approval. We've upped it to 2.5 to 3, so the next step up is 3 to 3.5.
Yeah.
In past years, in recent years, that's been a difficult size to come get a hold of at this point. But that we could certainly discuss whether or not we could upsize it one more for the street trees.
I need to speak from here, right? Okay.
Yes.
We wouldn't have a problem with it being the higher size. The reason it got bigger, but not, like Ken said, knocked to the next step was purely a reason of availability. But I'm not an expert in what size trees you can get. If we can get them, we'd be happy to put them in.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
well,
just thinking, well, I'll let you finish, but my only thought was that, it looks better sooner, so when the neighbors are looking at that, they can see that,
Well,
the effort was
reason,
made.
right. That was the reason to take them to the next size in the first place. And if we can to the next increment, I think that we'd be willing to do that.
Okay, Corey, I'll let you continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's good input. I agree. I do support option A, to be honest with you. I think it's very, very nice. And if you upgrade trees, I can do without that. If it's at your request, that's fine. But my concern there is 15, 20 years, what they're going to be like at that point. But I'm very happy with everything as is. Option A. Thank you very much.
Okay, Rick?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Looking through the plans and reading the letter from DPD, they do like Plan A. They did like some stuff in Plan B, but I think the trees and shrubs would look much better than a wall, and obviously, like you said, graffiti and such. The neighbors did kind of rally for the wall. That's what they were kind of working on. Can you tell me what the cost of the wall would be if you did have to put the wall up, offhand, roughly?
It's a little bit hard to tell because sort of the wall has moved around a bit. We've added a wall, you'll see in Plan A, which is discussed. The original wall was not ever shown on a plan, so we've had various different lengths of wall. I would get, if I had to guess, I would say somewhere in the $50,000 to $100,000 range for a section of wall.
And I agree with the chairman and the other board members that if we're going to eliminate the wall and stuff, we'd like to see the trees grow quick. So, I mean, obviously, if we can, offset, say, the wall, we're not going to put it up. Can we get that money for the wall to get larger calipers? I mean, the largest caliper we can find out there. Nobody's building right now. Can we get the real mature trees? I mean, we went from 3 to 3.5. I'd like to see, 4 or 5, so whatever we can get the largest out there to really get it to grow quick. The offset of that money, your savings on that side, if we can offset it. That's what I would really like to see, because obviously we're not spending the money on walls. Let's spend it on the trees and the shrubbery and get, much larger and much more faster growing process out there.
Just one thing to keep in mind as you go up in the caliper of the tree, there's actually a point where you start to receive, it grows
correct.
slower. So there's a break point where you're going to get faster growth out of a smaller tree because it can adapt better to the conditions.
Correct.
So that's one thing we have to keep in mind as we select that.
That's
May I suggest, gentlemen, that if you are amenable to accepting alternate A, that we say 3 to 5 inches as suited by the DPD? They're going to do the ultimate
Yeah,
approval
that's would be
That would be
satisfactory.
acceptable. And I understand about the growth, and you have to let them, get used to the area and the soils and stuff, and that's how they're gonna grow. But 3 to 5 would be acceptable. If DPD says, a larger caliper would be quicker out there, or it's stable. I just wanna see the neighbors, and it does look great. It does. It's gonna look great out there.
Now, does Plan A still incorporate part of the wall? I think it does, right?
It does. It does because, I know who wants to speak. I'll try first. What the DPD wanted to make sure was, for example, on what I'm going to call the 99 end, the end where the deliveries and everything are, that there'd still be a wall to help screen visually, not sound-wise, what's going on out back. Remember, bearing in mind there's a drop down there too on top of the wall. So there's wall there, and there's a little bit wall that comes from Wellman Street too.
And parts of those are serpentine.
Is that?
I believe it said that, I mean.
I think so.
There's the wall along the garden center is a curved wall. It follows along the edge of the loading. It's the loading area for the garden center, so it's
Right.
Seasonal loading. But it's a curved wall. It doesn't incorporate the serpentine. There's not enough room to do that, so we went with a more straight wall to provide the screening that the DPD had requested.
So it's not so much a cost savings issue that you're talking about. It's more of what's more effective to what the plan is with DPD.
Right, the wall Ken was just speaking about, which is the wall that sort of screens the loading area, is actually additional cost because it wasn't in the plan before. But it was in our discussions with DPD, they suggested that we ought to put some wall there, so we have.
Right. So the landscaping that's proposed in an alternative to the long serpentine wall, is that going to cost you more money, would you guess?
I think that when all is said and done, there's not going to be a huge difference. I think with landscaping and bigger trees and this new wall, that's the curved wall, not serpentine, we're probably within shouting distance of where we started, but we're trying to respond to the DPD and be responsive to the neighbors and the concerns the DPD has about the neighbors and screening and all that.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm satisfied with alternative A with the condition that Attorney Lighty suggested that the range for the trees be within 3 to 5 inches as directed by DPD and based on obviously availability. But Market Basket can find those mature trees, so I'm sure Lowe's can. Anybody else? Okay. Anybody here wish to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wish to speak in opposition to this proposal? In opposition? And hearing none, we'll open up to the board for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve with the following condition, that the trees be upgraded to a 3 to 5 inch caliper as suited by DPD.
Okay, and you're referring to approval of alternative A?
Option A, excuse me, yes.
Yep. Okay, I need a second?
Second the motion.
And roll call, please?
Approve with conditions?
Approve with conditions?
Approve with condition?
Approve with conditions.
Approve with conditions.
Okay, you've been unanimously approved with the condition that the trees be 3 to 5 inches as approved by DPD. What I do need to do is come up and just sign this plan. And now I think we have some minutes, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I'll do that. One other thing, different topic. Thank you very much, by the way, on this. I appreciate that. There are a couple of other things that I just want to give you a heads up that were not that clear in the conditions. For example, in the first 90 days, Lowe's is supposed to provide traffic police protection or support at peak hours with no definition of peak hours. And we've been asked by Lowe's to determine what that is. I'm not asking the board tonight. I think we're going to talk to DPD and maybe to the police department and see if we can work that out, but we may have to come back to clarify that.
Okay, and again, that would be, once we would look for input from the chief of police, and maybe the traffic department, and, as you said, DPD, and, we don't come up with that stuff either, so it's a condition that we wanted on there, but, and there's a need for it just to make sure that the neighbors and people coming in and out of the city aren't overly inconvenienced by the construction.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank
All right, thank you. If you could just sign that, George, anyway. Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have some minutes to approve. I'll give you the following dates. January 12th, 2009, January 26th, 2009, February 9th, 2009, and February 23rd, 2009.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to review these minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Need a motion to approve all those minutes?
Make a motion to approve?
All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. I need the second, sorry about that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The motion carries for all the minutes. Any other business, Mr. Clerk?
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Okay, meeting adjourned.